So you guys have heard me say on this channel many times. Personally, I think the best apologist on YouTube is Dr. Doug Beaumont. He was a guest on Blue Collar and a Scholar, and hopefully I'll have him back on. I have a lot more questions I have for him. Blue Collar and a Scholar is where a blue-collar guy, yours truly, sits down with a Catholic scholar and picks his brains. So hopefully I get Dr. Beaumont back on. But personally, I think the second best, and that's a close second, best apologist on YouTube is Trent Horn. And I always recommend him. I recommend his books. I recommend his channel. And recently, a really smart subscriber of mine, devout Catholic, who actually went through seminary and knows way more than me about the faith, emailed me a video that Trent recently made and said I wouldn't recommend Trent Horn anymore. So I watched the video, and I have to say I was very disappointed for two reasons. Knowing what a brilliant apologist Trent is, for him to come up with that conclusion was surprising to me. And then to have this conclusion, then to say it publicly, was very disappointing to me. So I tried to reach out to him, but usually I just look for someone's email and email them, but I haven't been able to get in contact. I was going to tell him I'm making this video, and if he wanted to add to it, or if he wants to come on and explain his position, he's welcome. Or if he wants me to go on his show, I'll willingly go. And when I tell people I can't get a hold of, I'll tell my friends, yeah, I'd like to talk to Trent Horn. I said, man, I've been wanting to have him on my show for a while, but I can't get a hold of him. And they're kind of surprised. They're like, dude, 2 weeks after Archbishop Timothy Broglio became the president of the USCCB, you had him on. And I haven't seen him on YouTube since. You've had Dr. Scott Hahn, you've had Steve Ray. And all I can say, it's the grace of God. If I just get lucky, I reach out to these people and they say yes, but if I don't have a contact, I can't reach out to them. So if anyone has Trent Horn's email, please send it to me and I'll reach out to him. So this is not a critique of the man. This is a critique of a video he did in his opinion. He publicly stated this opinion, so I'm going to publicly give my opinion why I believe he's wrong. And honestly, I have a son his age, maybe a year younger. So it's kind of like I would tell my son or one of my son's friends, Hopefully he can if he watches this, he can receive it in that spirit. First, I want to say, the video is criticizing Pope Francis. The name of the video was what Pope Francis needs to do. Now, first off, I want to say, there's a lot of false teachings on YouTube. There's sedevacantists like Mel Gibson and Carlo Vigano, and they basically say Vatican II was evil, so any pope after them was an antichrist. Like Mel Gibson and Vigano actually say this, and they're not popes. Sedevacantists is a Latin word that means the seat is empty, the seat of Peter. So there's no pope. He is far from that. He's far from that. But then you have schismatics like Kennedy Hall will say, yeah, the Pope is the Pope, but we don't have to obey the Pope when we disagree with him. To me, this is just another form of Protestants. I was a Protestant for 30 years, and my Lutheran brothers still claim to this day that after Trent, the Catholic Church went into schism, and they're still the true Catholics. And this is what these people would say. They don't have to obey the Pope, even though he's a Pope. The new Mass, the Novus Order, is evil, and they tell their people don't go to it. It's evil. So they're literally telling Catholics, if you eat the flesh, blood, and full divinity of Jesus Christ at the sacrifice of the Mass, if it's at the new Mass, the ordinary Mass that 90% of Catholics go to, it's intrinsically evil. Not just evil, intrinsically. Like, there's no way to make it good. So this is what Kennedy Hall teaches his followers. That's schismatic. Pope Benedict said his group that he belongs to, this little cult called the SSPX, has no canonical status. So they're like illegal. They're like Protestants. And then you have those who are very ambiguous, like Taylor Marshall, who says, I'm not schismatic. I know the new mass is valid. I know the Pope is the Pope, but they promote all these people. They'll have Vigano on, they'll have Mel Gibson on, like, video clips of him. And all his comments in the section will be agreeing with Mel Gibson, the Pope isn't the Pope. Agreeing with Vigano, the Pope is an Antichrist. And he never corrects them. So, I tell new Catholics, stay away from these people. These people are no different than protesting Christians or protesting the church. So he is not in this category. Trent Horn is a defender of the faith, and him, and along with all those other great people at Catholic Answers, help me and thousands of us reverts come back, because they were able to answer our biblical questions. When I had a question, I could just put in the search bar, and Catholic Answer gave me the answer in the Bible. And as a Bible alone Christian for 30 years, that's what I needed. So God is using them mightily. But now to tell you why I disagree. So in the video, he said, Pope Francis came out and said, all religions are passed to God and are like different languages. And he was saying that's contrary to church teaching. And he even pointed out it's contrary to what Pope Francis has taught in the past. And he said, he even put this up fairly enough. He put up Pope Francis, a quote, thus it is all very clear. One cannot enter into eternal life through another way that is not the door. That is, which is not Jesus. And when this video came out, my Protestant friends were like, well, what about this, Rob? Your Pope saying all religions are equal. All religions get you to God. And I said, that's not what he said. And I said, first of all, and I gave him a bunch of quotes in the past that Pope Francis said Jesus is the only way to God. I said, but you have to take it in context exactly what he said. He said all religions are a path to God. They are. He's not saying it's the right path. And if you look at his past statements, he's told us what the right path was. Also, you have to look at the context of who he was talking to. He was in a Muslim country speaking to mostly Muslim sheiks and Hindus that are killing each other over their religion. And the context was he was talking to young people saying you should have a dialogue. You should have a dialogue. And this is evangelization. Evangelization, you dialogue. So he was basically telling people dialogue. And I did a video about that. I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but I was surprised with his brilliant apologetic mind that he didn't defend the Pope. It was so easy to defend. In fact, Trent Horn put up on this video, let me find it. The response from the Vatican. They released what he said and they clarified. And Trent Horn said, well, this is good if he said this, but he didn't really say that. He should come out and explain to us what he meant. And so this is what the Vatican said he said. And, sometimes when we talk, sometimes I talk, I get misunderstood. I'm from Jersey, I'll talk fast. I don't have a script. I don't have sometimes I put notes like today. But sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm in my car at work and I got 10 minutes and and this is what Pope Francis just shoots off the cuff. But they're saying, this was approved by Pope Francis. This is what I meant. And this is what he said. You start arguing, my religion is more important than yours, or mine is the true one. Yours is not true. Where does this lead? Somebody answer. A young person shouts out, destruction. That is correct. Religions are seen as paths trying to reach God. And that's what I got. All religions are past. That's what he said. So he left out the word seen. I could see me doing that if I'm talking to somebody. And if you know me, I believe I'm a Christian. the Pope's the leader of the biggest Christian denomination, the biggest Christian church. So of course he believes that Jesus is the only way. That is correct. Religions are seen as a path trying to reach God. I will use an analogy. They are like different languages that express the divine. So even Trent Horn said, yeah, if he said that would make sense. Well, he's telling you that's what he said because it came from the Vatican, so it has to have his approval. And but we should follow the catechism when we hear the Pope say something that we don't understand. Catechism, paragraph 2478, says to avoid rash judgment, everyone should be careful to interpret insofar as possible his neighbor's thoughts, words, and deeds in a favorable way. Every good Christian ought to be more ready to give a favorable interpretation to another's statement than to condemn it. But if he cannot do so, let him ask how the other understands it. And if the latter understands it badly, let the former correct him with love. If that does not suffice, let the Christian try all suitable ways to bring the other to a correct interpretation so that he may be saved. So if we're supposed to do this for our neighbor, how much more for the Vicar of Christ? How much more for our Holy Father? And, when my kids were growing up, I have 5 kids, 4 boys and a girl. And the boys would always, they were boys, they end up getting roughhoused and kids getting hurt and parents coming in saying, your son beat up my son or whatever. And the one thing I always told my children, when you're outside this house, never go against the family. Even if your brother is 100% wrong, you tell me and I'll discipline him. You always have his back because no one else in this world is going to have your back but your family. And the Catholic Church is a family. Unlike our Protestant brothers and sisters who believe in only forensic justification, we have covenant justification. We are adopted into a family. We're brothers and sisters. We have a mother and we have a Holy Father represented on this earth. Pope Francis represents our Father on this earth. And you've heard me say this dozens of times on this video. When I was a Protestant, I used to attack the popes, Pope St. John Paul II, Pope Benedict. And then I seen Pope Francis and I was drawn in by this man's relationship with Christ and his love for Christ. And in my mind, I remembered the Godfather scene when Michael Corleone, who had wanted nothing to do with his family, recognized that his father was a good man in his eyes. And he said, Papa, this is Michael. I'm with you now. And in my mind, I said to Pope Francis, Papa, this is Rob. I'm with you now. And like an earthly father, I knew that God wanted me to love him. And how do you love someone? You stay loyal. If someone was trashing Trent Horn's father, even if he thought his father was in the wrong, you would think he would say, yeah, my father shouldn't have said that. No, he'd be like, stop talking trash about my dad. And his wife, his lovely wife, who I think was the most hilarious person on YouTube. I used to love her videos. And me being a sanguine dad with a sanguine daughter-in-law, I could relate to her. It was just, I just thought all her videos were thumbs up. If someone came on and attacked his wife and said, your wife is this, and that, even if he thought, being opposite temperaments, yeah, my wife probably shouldn't have said it that way. Would he say, yeah, you're right, my wife was wrong? No, he would say, keep talking about my wife, I'm going to tap you out, because he does a little jujitsu. I do Muay Thai. I'd say, you keep talking about my wife, I'm going to knock your teeth out. And so this is how I feel with our family. You got a problem with Pope Francis. If you have this opinion, keep it to yourself. Maybe talk to your priest or talk to your bishop and maybe let it go up the chain of command. But most young men today, and again, this young man's about the same age as my oldest son. Most young men today have not served in the military. Like less than 1% of guys now serve in the military. So they don't understand authority. When Bishop Strickland disobeyed the Pope, and when Frank Pavone disobeyed his bishop, I made videos and I said, just like in the military, these guys did great things for the church. But if there was a man in the army who got 3 Purple Hearts, a Medal of Honor, was a genuine war hero, but he disobeyed his general, he would be thrown into the brig or he would be discharged from the army. And all of us that served would say, man, that's sad. He was a good warrior, but yeah, we understand, you have to obey your authority. So his response, being a brilliant apologist, he might say, yeah, well, if you read the catechism about rash judgment, it says you should do everything you can to help his interpretation so he might be saved. But this is for your neighbor. He's our Holy Father. So let's see what the saints say about this. We'll start with Saint Pope Pius X. He writes a letter struggling against the modernists. And the modernists was a new thing that they thought, these priests and bishops thought they could criticize the Pope. You know, and you see this in our modern times now. Forget about priests and bishops. You got laymen like me criticizing them. I mean, I would never criticize our Pope, but I'm saying you have laymen that have no authority criticizing the Pope. They would have never thought of this. This was mind-boggling. The Pope St. Pius X, back in his day, that priests and bishops thought they had that authority. So listen to what he said to them and take it as he's saying it to you. This is a letter. Hey, Jack, I'll be right out. My grandson is knocking on the door. I told him. All right, wait till I'm done. Like 10 minutes, bud. I'm sorry. Jack, wait 10 minutes. Okay, so this is Pope St. Pius X writing a letter to the modernist priest of his day. Distracted with so many occupations, it is easy to forget the things that lead to perfection in priestly life. It is easy for the priest to delude himself and to believe that by busying himself with the salvation of the souls of others, he consequently works for his own sanctification. Alas, let not this delusion lead you to error, because no one gives what he does not have. That's very powerful. And in order to sanctify others, it is necessary not to neglect any of the ways proposed for the sanctification of our own selves. The Pope is the guardian of dogma and of morals. He is the custodian of the principles that make families sound, nations great, souls holy. He is the counselor of princes and of peoples. He is the head under whom no one feels tyrannized because he represents God himself. He is the supreme Father who unites in himself all that may exist that is loving, tender, and divine. It seems incredible and even painful that there be priests to whom this recommendation must be made. But we are regrettably in our age in this hard, unhappy situation of having to tell priests, love the Pope. He's got an exclamation mark. That's why I shouted. And how must the Pope be loved? Not in word nor in tongue, but in deed and in truth. When one loves a person, one tries to adhere in everything to his thoughts, to fulfill his will, to perform his wishes. And if our Lord Jesus Christ said of himself, if anyone love me, he will keep my word. Therefore, in order to demonstrate our love for the Pope, it is necessary to obey him. Therefore, when we love the Pope, there are no discussions regarding what he orders or demands, or up to what point obedience must go. It's like in the military. I was a petty officer. I'm not going to discuss what my admiral says is right or wrong, or should I obey him or not. This is not a democracy. The Catholic Church is not Protestant. It's not a democracy. Therefore, when we love the Pope, there are no discussions regarding what he orders or demands, or up to what point obedience must go, and in what things he is to be obeyed. When we love the Pope, we do not say that he has not spoken clearly enough for me, almost as if he were forced to repeat to the ear of each one the will clearly expressed so many times, not only in person, but with letters and other public documents. We do not place his orders in doubt, and the facile pretext of those unwilling to obey, that it is not the Pope who commands, but those who surround him. We do not limit the field in which he might and must exercise his authority. We do not set above the authority of the Pope that of other persons, however learned, who descend from the Pope, who even though learned, are not holy, because, listen church, whoever is holy cannot dissent from the Pope. This is the cry of a heart filled with pain, that with deep sadness I express, not for your sake, dear brothers, but to deplore with you the conduct of so many priests who not only allow themselves to debate and criticize the wishes of the Pope, but are not embarrassed to reach shameless and blatant disobedience with so much scandal for the good and with so great damage to souls. I looked and I tried to find a saint in our church that criticized the Pope at their time like these YouTubers do. And this is the kind of stuff I find instead. Even if the Pope were Satan incarnate, we ought not to raise up our heads against him. St. Catherine of Siena. St. John Bosco had a wonderful quote. Everyone knows St. Padre Pio, when he was falsely and unjustly punished by the Pope, he said, the will of my superiors is the will of God. And when the people rose up to support him and go against the Pope, he yelled at them and said, go back to your homes. Don't you dare criticize the Pope. This is what we find in church history, church tradition. So again, I don't think Trent Horn has any malice. I think he's trying to give his honest opinion, thinking it's going to help Catholics understand what's going on. But dear brother, I'm telling you, I was a Protestant for 30 years. Stuff like that just gives us reason not to become Catholic. You know, the best advice I can tell you, if you want to evangelize non-Catholic Christians, and the new evangelization is about bringing baptized Catholics back to the church. I was baptized as a baby and became an evangelical in 1985 and criticized the Catholic Church for 30 years. And when I come back and I hear my brothers and sisters in the Catholic Church criticizing the church, it just really saddens me and quite frankly angers me. So the best advice I can tell you is never, ever go against the family. God bless and stay Catholic.